continued economic stamina, payrolls grew by $336,000 on a seasonally adjusted basis. Now, this is according to the recent Labor Department statistics. The increase, almost double economists' expectations, serves as a confirmation of the labor market's vitality and the overall hardiness of our economy. Well, turns out that the United States will build a stretch of border wall, despite claims during the recent presidential election that a border wall will not work and that it was pretty much a waste of resources. Joe Biden said that he had no choice but to use money for the wall. He says the money was appropriated by Congress for the border wall. He said he tried to get Congress to reappropriate the funding and to redirect the money, but he was unsuccessful. Now, Joe Biden's Homeland Security Secretary is singing a little different tune and saying that this border wall is needed to curb the tide of immigrants coming into the United States. Donald Trump is in the game as it relates to who the next House Speaker will be. He has endorsed Jim Jordan, Congressmember Jim Jordan, in the race for the next Speaker of the House. Representatives Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise have sought support from members of the fractured Republican Party. And even though Trump has weighed in favoring Jim Jordan, Steve Scalise says he still has an outstanding chance of becoming the next Speaker of the House. And the news today, Donald Trump is said to have revealed nuclear submarine secrets to an Australian businessman. Reports are that soon after leaving office, the former president shared this sensitive information about American submarines with a billionaire during this billionaire's visit to Mar-a-Lago. Okay. And days before, Representative Matt Gaetz, you remember him, the congressman that led the effort to oust Kevin McCarthy as House Speaker. Apparently, Gaetz was at some kind of political fundraising on Zoom. And on that Zoom call, he denounced as a political stunt the Republicans' high-stakes efforts to impeach President Joe Biden. This is a revelation about the lack of merit and how unserious the Republicans are as it relates to this impeachment inquiry. According to someone who was on that Zoom call, Representative Gaetz is plotting another Senate run next year for the state of Florida. There's also been rumors that he's thinking of running for governor of the state of Florida. And former President Donald Trump unexpectedly dismissed a $500 million lawsuit against his former lawyer, Michael Cohen. Now, he says he's going to revisit this lawsuit at a later date. Trump's lawyer says he's just too busy to be bothered with showing up at a deposition or responding to discovery, so he had no choice but to dismiss this civil lawsuit. In the lawsuit, Trump had accused Michael Cohen of disparaging him through myriad public statements, including the publication of 2 books, a podcast series, and innumerable mainstream media appearances. Now, Michael Cohen says Trump dismissed the lawsuit because he had no choice, because he didn't want to submit to discovery, particularly a deposition, which, according to Michael Cohen, Donald Trump is incapable of telling the truth and would have perjured himself at a deposition while under oath. And the same group that sued Harvard and the University of North Carolina, claiming that their policies related to the admission of students and their reliance on affirmative action, that group, remember them, Students for Fair Action? They're suing Students for Fair Admission. They're now suing West Point over the consideration of race in its admissions policies. The same organization, Students for Fair Admissions, filed a similar lawsuit against the U.S. Navy Academy as well. If you will recall, when the Supreme Court issued its bombshell ruling, making it unconstitutional to use affirmative action in college admissions. It made an exception for military academies. The Supreme Court said there were no military schools that were defendants in the lawsuit, and so its decision did not extend to those military academies. That wasn't good enough for Students for Fair Admissions, because now they're going after those military academies. And the New Jersey Attorney General's office has seized records from Bergen County law enforcement agencies. They are reviewing an investigation of a fatal 2018 car crash involving, at that time, the girlfriend, soon-to-be wife of Senator Robert Menendez. They're trying to determine if she was given some kind of special treatment. She apparently was in an automobile accident in 2018 in which an individual who she says darted out in front of her car was fatally killed. She was apparently not given any kind of breathalyzer or sobriety test at the time of the accident. And now the federal investigators are trying to determine if additional charges should be brought against Senator Robert Menendez's wife. They both are facing very serious federal charges related to allegations of bribery and public corruption. You are listening and watching Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. I'll call this Ladies' Day. This is a Ladies' Day in the sense that my two contributors today are two brilliant women. Dr. Niambi Carter, professor at the University of Maryland, and Kennedy Sessions is here. She is a Houston area metro reporter for KRON. Those two brilliant contributors are going to help us make sense of Friday's news. And we're going to do a news roundup. We're going to talk not only about the stories that I just talked about, but really some of the other big stories of the week. And in hour two, you know what we do. That's the hour where we go deep, where we dig behind the headlines and we bring you some of the biggest stories that are making headlines and stories that have big impact. Well, you know, on KBLA and particularly on Areva Martin in real time, we have been bringing you gavel to gavel coverage of the federal bribery trial involving former LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas. There has been a stunning turn of events in that case involving the U.S. Attorney's Office and the KBLA Justice Correspondent Deon Raymond and federal criminal defense attorney Mansfield Collins. They're going to join me in hour two and share what this stunning development is as it relates to Mark Ridley Thomas and help us make sense of what it means. So make sure you stick around for hour two, because this is some pretty shocking developments, surprise developments on behalf of the U.S. attorney that indicted Mark Ridley Thomas in a 19-count indictment, tried him during the summer, a pretty lengthy trial where they were successful, they being the government, in getting a conviction on 7 of the 19 counts that were included in the indictment. Mark Ridley Thomas then appeared before the judge that presided over that trial and was sentenced. He was actually sentenced to a little over 3 years as a result of his conviction. And so coming up in hour two, we're going to talk about the status of that case and the stunning turn of events as it relates to the U.S. Attorney's Office. But before I bring on my guests, here's what I'm thinking in real time. It's Friday, and we want to go into the weekend feeling good, some positive news. You know, sometimes the news about politics and even some social current and cultural events can be a little depressing, a little sad. But today we're going to celebrate because Simone Biles, you know, she returned to all-around competition on the international stage. And boy, she could not have had a better return to the international stage. So in her pursuit of a record-tying six all-around world title, at the 2023 World Artistic Gymnastics Championships, this is happening in Belgium, Simone Biles opened her outing with a near perfect vault. And this wasn't what is called the Biles 2. This is a a particular gymnastic movement that has just been named after Simone Biles, but she got this near perfect vault on a slightly less difficult maneuver that she did. So she got a 9.5 out of 10 in terms of how she executed this vault. The entire American squad, again, led by the incredibly talented Simone Biles and others on the U.S. team, are going for their 7th straight gold in this event. She's going to compete. Simone is going to compete in the apparatus finals over the weekend. She's going to do vault and uneven bars on Saturday, and she's going to do the beam and some floor routines actually on Sunday. But Simone Biles, as a result of what happened with this near perfect vault, has moved into the sole possession of the record. This talented young woman now has 34 medals, we know, at the Olympics and the World Championships combined. Wow. And she won her 21st world gold medal, extending an existing record. So we are just so happy for her. She just returned to competition just this August. Remember, she had been on a 2-year hiatus from the sport. She was dealing with some personal issues. She was really working on her mental health. She got married. And she has come back with a vengeance. She is just proving to the world, to the international community, that she is indeed Americans' darling. She's our champion, and she is just absolutely incredible, both on the gymnastics floor and off. So kudos to her. Kudos to the American team that's in Belgium, making all of us proud. So that's something we can all feel good about this weekend. We can cheer on the American gymnastic team as they continue to go for gold. Make sure you check it out. That the competition is going to actually be on Peacock and streaming all weekend. All right, when we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Good talk.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
All right, we are back, and it's Friday, and this is Areva Martin in real time. And typically on Friday, my guest host, Avi Bernard, would be here, but he was actually on the air yesterday, so I'm holding it down on Friday today for Avi. We actually switched days, so I'm super excited to be closing out the week with two brilliant contributors, Dr. Niambi Carter and Dr. Kennedy Sessions. And ladies, what a week it has been. I actually was at an event last night with Nancy Pelosi. She was hosted in Los Angeles by our mayor, Karen Bass, who served in the U.S. Congress with former Speaker Pelosi. They had been to the memorial service for our beloved Senator Dianne Feinstein, who passed away. They had her services yesterday up in San Francisco, and then Mayor Bass and former Speaker Pelosi flew down to LA to do this event. And as Mayor Bass was introducing Speaker Pelosi, she reminded us that what we saw happen with those Republicans this week in terms of ousting their own speaker and taking to the House floor to just really trash him. You know, she reminded us that Nancy Pelosi didn't play, that would have never happened on her watch. And so, Dr. Carter, like, what were you thinking as you watched or read or heard about the ousting of Kevin McCarthy, and not just the fact that he was ousted, which, you know, he's going to go down in history as the only speaker that served 9 months, but the way it was done, it was vicious.
Well, I thought it was yet another moment of Republicans cannibalizing their own. This is something that Republicans have done. They did it to Liz Cheney, but you remember years ago, they did it to Eric Cantor. I mean, Paul Ryan and John Boehner essentially left because they were feeling like this party was no longer there for them. I think it's just a signal of the deep dysfunction of a party that does not want to be ruled or managed. I mean, part of what you have your majority leader there to do, whether in the Senate or in the House, is to unify and to get people kind of in order, so to speak. And unfortunately, Kevin McCarthy just didn't have the gravitas to do it. I mean, we sort of knew that was going to happen, that it was going to be an uphill battle because of what he had to promise over those 15 ballots to even get the position. But Kevin McCarthy is here because of things that Kevin McCarthy did. I mean, he wasn't trustworthy for Republicans, certainly not for Democrats. And ultimately, there were no saviors of Kevin McCarthy in that body. I think the question next is, who comes next? Is it just going to be more of the same, or could it potentially be worse than a Kevin McCarthy?
And, you know, Kennedy, Republicans are running around blaming Nancy Pelosi, kicked out of her office, blaming the Democrats for not, quote unquote, saving Kevin McCarthy, forgetting that Kevin McCarthy went on television Sunday before the vote, blaming the Democrats, saying that they wanted to shut the government down. I mean, just making the biggest lies, you know, telling the biggest lie to the American people possible. But why did these moderate Republicans think that it was the responsibility of the Democrats to save Kevin McCarthy? And why aren't they pointing the finger where the blame really goes, which is on Matt Gaetz and the group of 8 that followed him, and Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is the one that gave Matt Gaetz the green light to pull the plug on Kevin McCarthy, because Kevin McCarthy wouldn't shut the government down, because Trump wants the government shut down because he thinks that's going to stop the investigations from the Department of Justice. So all this is about his own personal freedom and the legal issues that he has. It's not about, you know, doing anything for the country. But why wasn't the blame placed where the blame belonged?
Right. I mean, you're talking about a party that can't ever take accountability for anything. So not that I expected them to do that, but I was really, honestly, really proud of the Democrats for saying, like, no, we're going to stand our ground. We're going to, like, show up for ourselves because you try to put this back on us, knowing that that wasn't true. And so to see them do that as a collective effort, and all of them, like from Jayapal to every single senator that I saw, a representative that I saw speaking to the press, they were very unified as a message, which is something else that I think that they struggle with sometimes. And, of course, like, the Republicans have been fighting on a national level for years, but even at a state level, you kind of just see their party hitting a boiling point and a breaking point. And I really think Kevin McCarthy getting booted out by his own people just put that on display for all of us to see.
Yeah, it was quite a spectacle. I mean, the way Matt Gaetz and others took to the floor to just call him out. And I mean, Matt Gaetz is not mincing words. And then Donald Trump swoops in. What do you think, Dr. Carter, Jim Jordan had to promise Donald Trump to get his endorsement? Because we know it's not because he likes Jim Jordan. Trump is only interested in himself and what he can get out of any arrangement that he makes. And when he no longer needed Kevin McCarthy, even though Kevin went and kissed the ring after January 6th, he was no longer needed because he didn't follow Trump's instructions to the T. So what did Jim Jordan give up, you think?
Well, listen, I think Jim Jordan has been groveling at Donald Trump's feet for quite some time. And I think what anybody who gets into bed with Donald Trump has to give up is their own self-respect, their own sense of dignity, whatever ethical or moral compass governs them. I mean, we saw that with Kevin McCarthy. You can only please so many masters. But Jim Jordan has been a sort of willing participant in this Trump crazy train for months. I mean, he's the person that wants to inquire about impeaching Joe Biden. He's the person that wants to sort of have an alternative committee around January 6th to see if, there was in fact any real wrongdoing, even though all of us saw it, right? I mean, so Jim Jordan, I think it's not far of a leap to see him sort of kiss Donald Trump's ring. What he promised, it's unclear, but I bet it's probably some of the more extreme parts of the Republican platform that the Freedom Caucus really went after Kevin McCarthy for not, I guess, pushing for more vigorously, key among those being the impeachment of Joe Biden.
Kennedy, you have any guess? I'm thinking he promised to defund the Department of Justice, perhaps defund the FBI. He's really, really angry at those two agencies. He blames them for what's happening to him in this New York trial where he's being revealed to be a cheat and an insurance, fraud. What are you thinking he might have promised Donald Trump to get his endorsement and to get it so quickly?
He probably promised himself. Like, he's willing to do anything to help Trump not only try to get reelected or just push his crazy messaging. And you brought it up, like the different social services, different departments that run these very important agencies in the US. He's willing to say they don't deserve funding, all for Donald Trump. So, at what cost? And I feel like for Jim Jordan, this is really just the beginning of we're going to see him groveling all over the Capitol Hill.
Yeah, and that's if he wins. And it remains to be seen if either he or Scalise can garner enough votes. And, Dr. Carter, the big litmus test here is Jim Jordan has says he only wants to win with Republican votes. He doesn't want to do anything that's bipartisan. He's letting us know off the bat he is not going to seek any Democratic votes on anything. So, he's thrown down the gauntlet and letting the country know that he's not interested in governing, that he's not interested in, the government we're going to be right back on the brink of shutting down the government. And if either of these men are speakers, we're going to be in trouble.
Well, look, I think Scalise is slightly more diplomatic than Jim Jordan. I mean, they're both farther to the right than Kevin McCarthy. But I think you're pointing out the key part here, Areva, is none of these people actually care about doing their job. They want to obstruct. I mean, even removing Kevin McCarthy was about that because they knew that the body couldn't do any work if there was no speaker. So all of these people are here essentially trying to destroy the country from the inside out and prove their point, because all of them are standing in line saying, I can fix it after they destroyed it. But what they want to do is remake these institutions and these spaces in their own images. And that does not include people that look like us. That does not include Latino people. That does not include indigenous people, gay people, trans people, you name it. Those folks do not exist for them. And unfortunately, we are an increasing share of the population, and they are still trying to govern as if we don't matter. And they are doing everything in their power to make sure our votes don't count, to make sure that we don't show up in the polls, because that would affect their bottom line. So they're going to stoke these fears. They're going to say all of these nonsense things because it wins elections and it gets people really riled up, and they're appealing to people's lesser angels, quite frankly.
Yeah, definitely that. Even, I mean, to the point where we saw those Republicans in Alabama after we finally got a map that provides 2 African-American congressional districts. So the Democrats are going to pick up another seat in Alabama. The Republicans vowing to challenge it again. They're not done. They refuse to accept that African Americans are entitled to have a constitutional right to vote and to have congressional districts that reflect the demographics of the state of Alabama. So I think what we're seeing across these state legislatures, any slippage by Republicans, anything that provides opportunities for someone other than these cisgender white male Republicans to be in power, in control, is they're willing to challenge even their own Supreme Court, their own being a 6-3 conservative Supreme Court. I do feel a little good, though, this week about Michael Cohen forcing Donald Trump to dismiss that lawsuit. And Trump's just talking a bunch of trash. But the reality is he could not afford to sit in a deposition and be sworn to tell the truth without committing perjury. And so I think Donald Trump's legal problems, just the sheer number of them, lawsuits that are pending that he's filed or have been filed against him, starting to catch up with him. And we're going to see a very different Donald Trump, I think, over the next couple of months as these lawsuits continue to heat up. And others may have to be dropped for the very same reason. When we come forward, we're going to talk about Matt Gaetz maybe being a senator. And why is this investigation involving Robert Menendez now taking this turn to look at this car accident involving his then girlfriend and possibly, well, now his wife? And is Joe Biden really building that stupid Donald Trump border wall? Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
That your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Following the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. 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 Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union, weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580, weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time, that's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the score.
We are back, and in this hour, Dr. Niambi Carter and Kennedy Sessions join me as we track today's breaking and trending news. And in hour two, we are going to bring you this bombshell development in the federal bribery trial of LA City Council member, former LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas. We've been tracking that trial, gavel to gavel. We brought you every day an update during the trial, including some of the post-trial motions, the actual sentencing, where Mark Ridley Thomas, after being convicted on 7 counts of a 19-count indictment, was then sentenced by a judge in a federal district court in Los Angeles to a little over 3 years. There's a new, pretty stunning development in the case. And in hour 2, KBLA's justice correspondent Dion Raymond and federal criminal defense lawyer Mansfield Collins will join me, and we're going to talk about that stunning development, what it means, and where we go from here. All right, Dr. Carter, there's the reporting on this wall is so disturbing to me. Some reports suggest that the Biden administration is pushing for the building of the border wall because of the influx of migrants, particularly from Venezuela, that are coming into the country and making it very difficult for big cities, particularly cities like New York. Other reports suggest that no, Biden is not in favor, but there's some money that was appropriated by Congress. So what are you reading between the lines as it relates to this border wall?
Well, look, I think it's a little bit of both, from one from column A, one from column B, because if you look at what Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas has said, he said that this border wall will help to stem the flow of migrants and other kinds of things. And this has been something, a part of Democratic and Republican arsenals for a very long time. Bill Clinton built wall, right? As has this Donald Trump, and now it looks to be Joe Biden. Joe Biden, I think, is trying to do 2 things at once, which is appear to be firmer on immigration, because he's been in favor of a border wall before. When he was a senator, he was in favor of it. But at the same time, has to be very careful because Latino voters and others are key parts of his constituency. And so I think he's trying to talk out of both sides of his mouth on this. He doesn't think the wall will be effective, but because the money has already been appropriated, which is true, in 2019, and there's no way to reallocate those monies unless Congress does it, the wall has to be built. Now, it didn't say how quickly the wall had to be built. So if he drags his feet, I think that'll probably be more of a show of some sort of solidarity, because he did just meet with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus this week. But I do think many view this as him walking back, because people don't care about the nuances of this. It happened on your watch, and therefore you own it. And I think that's going to be what carries the day.
But Kennedy, Biden was adamantly opposed to Trump's border wall when he was running for president. Talked about how ridiculous it was. People can build ladders to go over the wall. People can build tunnels to go under the wall. A lot of the wall has to be built on private property, so you have to use eminent domain. There are national monuments. There have already been reports of the wall that has been built to date, how it has destroyed some national treasures. So how does Biden get away with having his hands at all on anything having to do with a border wall?
I don't think he is, and I don't think he will. I mean, I feel like we already see the backlash that's coming from a lot of immigration advocates. I'm in Texas, and it's just it's not a good look, especially at a time when we have state officials who are in active legal cases with the Biden administration over the buoys and other, anti-immigration laws that they're trying to push in Texas. And so it really doesn't look good. And I understand what Biden is saying as, well, money was already there, and I know it's not effective, and I've been speaking out about it. But I think he has to drag his feet is a really good option, but he needs to do something, because this doesn't look good, especially going into 2024. And he needs the Latino vote. For sure.
Well, him and Mayorkas have to get on the same page, because I think right now, they get a couple of different messages coming from the White House. Mayorkas isn't talking about the money or the appropriation. He's saying we need this wall because I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. And a wall may not be perfect, but it is one, solution amongst many. And that doesn't seem to be what Biden is saying, for the very reasons we're talking about. And you're right, the Latino voters, immigration advocates, they are not going to allow Biden to walk back his commitment to not build a wall. And we know a wall is not the solution to our immigration issue. You know, we've been kicking the immigration can down the road for decades now. No president wants to deal with it. It's a hot potato. And the numbers, they rise, they fall, they rise, they fall. And they're going to continue to do so until we in our country, i.e. our Congress, really looks at comprehensive immigration reform. DACA, still tied up in the courts. I mean, Obama tried to do something on immigration with an executive order. And it's, still being challenged in the court system. And you talked about those buoys. That was Abbott going out, putting barbed wire and doing his own thing around immigration. So it's really a challenging matter, and I don't want to be dismissive about it or suggest that there's some easy solution, because there is not. I was on a call with Mayor Bass today, and unlike Eric Adams in New York, we are getting 1 or 2 buses a week, Kennedy, from Texas. Your governor putting people on buses, but they're not staying in LA, she told us. She says they're leaving. They come here, they make connections, and they end up going, leaving the city. So we don't have the issue that New York is having right now, where many of them are coming to New York and they're staying. And now there's the issue, Dr. Carter, of the temporary work permits. And some are saying, well, that's not a good idea, because that just incentivizes more people to come because they know they can get these temporary work permits. So it's really, again, no easy solution to this. We talked about lawsuits, Kennedy, and Karen Bass said her legal team has said it's not really a whole lot that they can do, because many of these people say they're signing consent forms to be on these buses from Texas to Los Angeles. I don't know.
It's important to note with the buses and Greg Abbott and this whole scheme he has going on, a lot of these people getting on the buses, you have to think about their circumstance. Like in their head, they're just trying to get help. They're just trying to get connected to their family here. They're trying to find a job. They're trying to figure out something, and they know that they're in a state that is not supportive of that. And so I think for them, it is a sticky situation with the consent form. So it's hard to do something legally, but in just a moral human way, like how can we help these people is really what I think the goal should be. And it's obvious that Texas is.
Well, is Texas doing anything? I mean, are there nonprofits and humanitarian groups that are trying to provide housing and food, and what does Texas do other than put people on buses?
No, for sure. I remember when it was the wave of Haitians coming into Texas a couple years ago, there were Houston orgs like ready on the ground saying, hey, we're here to help. Like, what do you need? And it's the options and the help is there. I think on a statewide scale, it's not. So it is a lot of nonprofits, trying to get resources, trying to get money, trying basic things like food, clothes, housing. And it's really hard when the state is not structured in a way that's there to support them. So it's, they're trying, but it's really people on the ground doing the work, not the government trying to help at all.
And I would say, in fairness, to follow up with Kennedy, that's true everywhere, because unfortunately, we do not have a coherent system to deal with people who are seeking refuge in this country. So we talk about all of these people as if they're all the same, and they're not, right? Not legally, at least. There are different kinds of migrants. So people who are seeking asylum, right? That's a different kind of process than a person who we just call undocumented. It's, again, that kind of distinction gets lost in the conversation, but it's important. Even when we talk about Venezuelans, they have temporary protected status, so they can come to the U.S. and kind of bypass this border process that is ensnaring Guatemalans and Hondurans and Haitians and other people who are trying to come up through that Darien Gap, through up to get to Mexico, to the southern border. But this need that people have for work is a huge one. I mean, cities from New York to El Paso and everywhere else are talking about, well, migrants are taking up so much of our social welfare. That's because they don't have a way to work. So if we know that there are jobs there, and there are clearly jobs, this is partly what incentivizes people to come, because we know that there are employers who are not being held to account for hiring undocumented people or people without proper working permits. That if people have work permits, it makes them safer. It also allows them to get their footing, because there is not really a real social safety net
But the work permit issue is all tied up again in congressional action because there's not enough staffing. There are not enough resources to get people processed to get them the work permits that would allow them to work. So we go back to Congress and not providing the kind of resources that are necessary to really deal with the immigrant problem because Republicans want to act like they're anti-immigrants when restaurants and businesses and companies throughout this country, particularly those in the South, can't survive without that immigrant labor and all the jobs. I mean, we can't hire enough workers in the U.S. I mean, the jobs report today stunned economists because 336,000 jobs were created. Economists weren't expecting that. And everywhere you go, Kaiser, the strike, they need to hire like 10,000 more people. I mean, so there's a real shortage of skilled workers in this country. Nurses, shortage of nurses, so there's just
teachers.
Yeah,
we can keep going. We can keep
Psychologists,
going.
lawyers, everything. So this notion that these people are coming here to take something away is so ridiculous. Like I have a company, I can hire 100 people today, but I can't find them. So really ridiculous how Republicans are just playing politics with this. But when we come forward, got to talk about students for fair admissions. They're going after both West Point and the U.S. Naval Academy. And the question is, what's next? Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
Listening to Areva Martin in real time.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. 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 Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to the Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on the Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Cortez, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union, weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580, weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time, that's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change
All right, we are back, Dr. Carter. So this Students for Fair Admissions, they are not satisfied with the decision by the Supreme Court that ended affirmative actions in college admissions in universities across this country. Now they're going after that exception that was carved out by the Supreme Court with respect to military institutions, West Point, the Naval Academy. We also saw them sue a private company owned by African-American women. So they're out to undermine not only admissions to all colleges and universities, but also I think they're going after companies that have made a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. How dangerous is this? And how worried are you about these actions?
Well, I mean, I think Ed Blum is very dangerous because he's been involved in everything from education to affirmative action to voting rights, right? I mean, he is against anything that gets us closer to racial parity or even racial equity or racial justice. Like, he is dead set against it. I think what's more disturbing are the numbers of people who are willing participants in these machinations to undermine affirmative action or to undermine, racial admissions. He often, especially in these cases, likes to put people of color out front, the people who are allegedly hurt by these admissions. And I think it's always interesting that the supposed villain in these stories are always Black and brown folks. And in the case of these military institutions, they've been telling us over and over and over again that it's working. We see it in their administrative ranks, right? We see it in the officers' ranks, that they have done a better job of looking like America than most other institutions. And that's because they made a concerted effort to do so. And it took 50, 60 years to get there. And now they want to undermine it because someone has got their panties in a twist about, these underqualified, less important Black and brown folks. But the military will tell you themselves, the military has been more successful with a more diverse body of people, more women, more Latinos, more indigenous folks, more Black folks, that they have gotten better, not because they've had more bombs and missiles, but because they had a plethora of people at the table who had different ways of thinking about doing the world. And we know in a mission-driven kind of institution like the military, it does do a lot to tamp down the racial animus. It doesn't get rid of it. But when people can be focused on something and a common goal, it does help, just like a sports team and other things, to get rid of some of that. So the military has really been an exemplar, and Ed Blum and these folks want to tear it down. And I think we have to make sure that they're not able to tell the same lies about these military institutions that they told about other institutions of higher education.
But it seems like, Kennedy, the Supreme Court invited this lawsuit. They knew when they carved out this exception that this, organization, Students for Fair Admissions, well-funded, very strategic, they knew that it was not going to rest until every institution in this country falls under this ruling that makes it unconstitutional to consider race in the admissions into schools like Naval Academy and West Point. So how are you feeling about private companies? Do you think they are off limits, or do you think we're going to see a barrage of lawsuits going after those DEI departments and going after those efforts, whether it's to give scholarships or to provide extra job training or benefits to people of color?
Definitely. I think the Supreme Court's ruling just gave them gas in the tank. That's all it needed to keep going. And it definitely feels like, we're on a wave of just anti-DEI across the board. And not only higher institutions, but like you mentioned, they're going to go for private institutions next. And then, the next institution, the next institution, the next institution, to where the point of we want to make a statement of we don't need racial parity in this country. That is not a priority, and it shouldn't be a priority. And that's the statement that they're making. And even, besides the lawsuits and these organizations behind this effort, there's state officials who are and national federal officials who are on the same wavelength as them, voicing and expressing these views for them. So I think it's just a continuation of what's kind of already been happening, and it's just sad, it's just really sad.
It's the backlash, and I have a guest that comes on, Dr. Raphael Sonnenschein. He was on the other day. He says it's the Obama backlash. So it's not even the backlash to the George Floyd and the civil unrest. He says this dates back to anger that white people still have over the audacity of a Black man to be the president of the United States. Professor Carter, Senator Gates, Governor Gates.
God, I hope
Can you
not.
imagine?
I hope not. I mean, this man again single-handedly firebombing his own party ahead.
Dr. Carter, Matt Gaetz says he wants to be senator, or we're hearing governor of the state of Florida.
Of course he does. He wants more power. But I mean, again, this is a man who ripped his own party to shreds right before a big election year. Like, who does this?
I think you're on mute. I'm not hearing you, Dr. Carter. We're having some technical difficulties. While she's working that out, Kennedy, what are you feeling? Senator Gates, Governor Gates?
No, I'm not feeling it. And I also think that this is his way to, make his way up the ranks. So hopefully one day, I could see him running for president. I could see him running to, try to be one of the top leaders in the Republican Party. I mean, even he kind of showed how long his power goes in this vote with McCarthy. So yeah, I definitely think he's on that train to just work his way up, and we're just going to see more madness and craziness.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and scandals, because he has plenty of scandals.
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention the lawsuits and all his. Yeah, we didn't even mention that. But
it's a mess. It's a mess. But listen, Donald Trump set a precedent, and when you start breaking norms and you set bad precedent, you can expect other people to continue to break norms. So I don't think this is going to be the last time we see another person try to get rid of a speaker. I don't think this will be the last time we see someone with the kinds of charges that have been levied against Matt Gaetz try to run, just like his predecessor, Donald Trump, who's now 90 felonies that he's fighting. This is just bad all the way around. He does not need more power. He does not need more institutional gravitas than he has right now. Matt Gaetz is dangerous.
I just hope
a little scary to think that Matt Gaetz can take his road show and do anything else with it. We know the kind of harm he's already done in Congress. I can't even imagine him in the U.S. Senate or sitting in the governor's mansion in the state of Florida. Ladies, we are out of time. Thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with me on Areva Martin in Real Time. And I can't wait to have you ladies back. Have an amazing weekend. And when we come forward, we're going to break down this stunning revelation by the U.S. attorney in the federal bribery trial involving former LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing